Hello and welcome to the podcast that has refused to put its clocks back. No, we won't go quietly into the long winter nights. So long as you're listening, we'll keep talking. Like Sir Richard Hadley's bookshelf, this show will have lots of surprises, including a brand new segment on Sir Richard Hadley's bookcase. There's all the usuals too, so take guards, 2 legs please, hit subscribe and auto-download, and join myself, Paul Ford and Dylan Cleaver, as we traverse the cricketing landscape. Now lads, I know you're great, so I'm not going to engage in the normal small talk. Let's get into some razor-sharp analysis of the Test squad named to face England. New faces, Duffy, Ravindra, Conway and D. Cleaver. As much as it disgusts me to say, was right with his Ravindra prediction. G'day, fellas.
Yeah, I'll take that one. I'll take that as a win, actually, and maybe I could have that as a point on News or Ruse, just an automatic.
No.
No? Okay.
No. No.
I have to hastily add that I was not correct about Glenn Phillips, though, who I had penciled in as a near certainty. So,
Yeah.
Look, it's a strong squad, obviously. New Zealand is a strong team. I would make 2 observations, though. 3 left-arm orthodox spinners in Ravindra, Patel and Santner, and 7 right-arm medium pacers. Now, I just think that maybe they missed a trick and could have tried something a little bit different with maybe 6 right-arm medium pacers and have a Glenn Phillips type player there, so a match winner, just totally different to anyone else.
Sure.
I appreciate his first-class record's not great, and he didn't have a great Plunket Shield season, but he just seems to offer that X factor that we all love to talk about, and I wonder if 3 left-arm orthodox spinners is overkill and we could have found room for a unorthodox spinner.
So what you're essentially saying, Dylan, is the only complaint that you have is the prediction that you have that wasn't fulfilled, and therefore that's the only issue that you have with the squad is the fact that they didn't have Phillips in there,
Yeah.
and you predicted Phillips to be in there.
I took it personally.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Your thoughts, Paul Ford?
Oh, I've got a less selfish analysis.
Yeah, fair enough. Good
for
on you,
Jason. Yeah, so I guess I would have loved to have seen Lockie Ferguson in there. I know he's been injured. He's going to be over in England. Geez, it would be lovely to have him with the seeming Duke on a green top in early, what is it going to be? Late May, early June. That would be lovely. Nishan's unlucky as well, I think. Phillips, we've mentioned. Sodhi and Somerville, we could have chucked them in. I'm not complaining about the squad, and I think there's 20 in there, and we've got they're going to whittle it down to 15. It's pretty predictable. Colin de Grandhomme, he's in there. Apparently, he's not even able to run at the moment. So you'd have to say that Daryl Mitchell's got a good inside running there, and this young fella Ravindra, he's not playing for nothing. And of course, we've got to squeeze Conway in here somewhere. We can't keep him on the sideline from Test cricket. Ravindra, I think we're going to have him and have a yarn with him. But he's a 21-year-old opening batsman, left-arm finger spinner, but primarily a batsman, I would say. I think he's faced more deliveries than Rahul Dravid, just bowled mostly by his dad, who's a massive cricket nuffy, notoriously famous cricket-loving dude in Wellington. Great to see Doug Bracewell back in 5 years after he was last there. And, nice to see Jacob Duffy in there too. Left arm swing. Right arm. We're not going to have the blistering pace. Oh, is he a right armer?
Yeah, I think he is a right armer, yeah.
My bad.
And just to take up your point, which was what I was going to mention as well, it is nice to see Doug Bracewell in the squad. He's a handy cricketer, and it wasn't that long ago that we saw him as a sort of saviour, really, didn't we? We saw him as a real potential candidate going forward, and he just kind of lost his way a little bit, maybe outside of cricket, and then he's found his way back. But there's no question, I personally think he's got one of the most beautiful, simple bowling actions.
Yeah,
it's really lovely to watch. He's a handy cricketer to have, Dylan.
Yeah, and look, he's done that rarest of things, which is bowl New Zealand to victory against Australia in Australia. I don't think we'll ever forget that spell at Hobart where, he tore through Australia's middle and lower order. He obviously has done a bit of growing up off the field. I think we probably don't need to relitigate all his incidents.
Certainly not.
But It's
Budgie,
interesting
for
to
example.
note.
We don't need to relitigate the Budgie incident. Yeah.
It's interesting to note that Gary Stead described him as an all-rounder. And we know his batting is handy, but he's really undersold himself, I think, with the bat in Test cricket.
Yeah.
I think he averages, I'm sure he averages less than 20 with the bat. So if he is in contention maybe for that Colin de Grandhomme spot as well, he's going to have to score a few more runs.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, that whole all-rounder spot is really heating up. I mean, you have to say with Mitchell, he's really taken his opportunities. Of course, he's got his one-day international 100. He's got his debut test match 100. He's moved down to Canterbury, made that move last year. He's made a winning post of everything. And then you chuck in the likes
But is he an all-rounder?
Well,
he's a batsman in my eyes.
yeah, he's a batsman, but he's a handy bowler. But then you've got, Colin de Grandhomme coming back, who's also a very, very handy player. You've got Kyle Jamieson, who's fringing on that sort of all-rounder basis. Interesting. What are our thoughts about Jimmy Neesham not being there?
Yeah, well, I think for the reasons we've listed, Mitchell they see as kind of an all-rounder. De Grandhomme, obviously. I figure that if de Grandhomme is ruled out, Neesham's probably your next on the list. And in fact, he might even be over in England playing the 100.
Right,
so he'll be there and easily accessible.
Well, you made the point about Mitchell and his bowling. In terms of looking at that all-rounder spot, you'd have to say Jimmy was a handier bowler to have. He's a little bit nippier. He does a bit more with the ball. And he's a more than capable batsman, Paul Ford.
Yeah. You wonder whether Bracewell's kind of there, to your point, because Neesham's going to be tucked away in the IPL. Potentially his team's in the finals. He's actually not going to be available when they need him to play those pre-WTC test matches at Lords and Edgbaston. The other thing that we haven't talked about, well, not much, is around, spin. And there's been a bit of chat, about that Rose Bowl pitch and, that it's the most conducive to spin. Is it going to be in June? I'm not sure that it is. Last year, England played 3 tests there. There were 72 wickets. 12 of them fell to spin, 60 to pace. So, potentially we're going to run a no-spin attack, and that's maybe... that's not unprecedented, so it could be very similar to what we've been seeing in New Zealand over the last few matches.
Well, the interesting question too is for me, if your spinners aren't quite there, you don't play them. I mean, Why do we have this mentality that you have to have a spinner in the team? Because, frankly, if they're not a threat and they're not quite at that level yet, to my mind, you don't have them in there.
It's a way to wheel through some overs.
Yes, but it's such a defensive mindset.
It is, but you lose points now if you don't get your over rate up.
Right.
So they need to wheel through some overs reasonably quickly. I mean, you could do that with Williamson, although he's loath to bowl himself.
Yes.
Which is why I think, Santner's probably had more of a run in that test team than a lot of his critics would have liked. I know he's often the subject of a bit of social media querying of a spot in the team. But I think they like the fact that he can wheel through overs fairly quickly, non-offensively, and pick up the odd wicket.
Well, we were talking about the all-rounders just before. He adds that kind of aspect to it. But I think what happened with Santner, and when it really came to a head, was that tour to Australia, where he just didn't look like getting a wicket.
And yet Nathan Lyon on the other team looked like getting a wicket every time he bowled.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's no question that having a top-quality spinner in your side is an absolute asset. It's just whether or not you just go there for the sake of having a spinner in the side. But having an overall look at the side, once again, it demonstrates to me the depth and strength of New Zealand cricket, and that's a bloody strong squad we're sending there, fellas.
Yeah, and look, Blundell, who's got a couple of test tons, might be on the outside looking in for that playing 11, because I assume they're going to slot Conway in as the opener. Blundell's been batting down the order for Wellington of late. So, it might be that, a guy that's done a lot right doesn't get a spot in the starting 11, then that only points to a very strong team.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, even dare I say it, you know, Ross Taylor will be under a little bit of pressure, but I think, you know, he'll be fine. I think Watling is also going to come under some pressure. You know, his last two scores in Test cricket, 7 and 5. He got a 30. He hasn't scored 100 for a while. I mean, they haven't played a hell of a lot of games, to be fair. But,
I mentioned this last week and got mocked, didn't I?
Those two tests, though. You know, he's going to be under pressure with Conway and Blundell there.
Would you do something radical like playing Watling as the keeper batsman in the first test and Blundell as the keeper batsman in the second test, and, you know, essentially make it a trial for the WTC final?
Not a bad idea, Cleaver.
Not a bad one.
It's not a bad idea. Yeah. Well, but I think Paul makes a really good point about Watling. But, you know, once again, let's not be too short-sighted here, of course. He has been a stalwart player for New Zealand, and he's, as everyone knows, that nuggety little fighter that has played some great innings when we need them most. He's one of those players that seems to play at his best when we're under the pump, and not quite so well when we're on top. Yeah,
that's been the accepted wisdom with BJ Watling, but I would argue that it's actually been a while since he's scored tough runs for New Zealand.
Yeah, Blundell did all right at the MCG.
Correct.
Yes, he did.